We each get one life, and that's it. You get one shot at this. We don't get any do-overs, you know? And like for me, it was time to put up or shut up. The way I saw it, I didn't have a choice. You know, like this is what I was put here to do. I guess I'm just a hopeless romantic, and I'm an idealist, and I believe in hopeless causes.
For Peter, doing something meant starting his own nonprofit. Just months after we met him, he was already delivering humanitarian aid and medical assistance to Syrians in refugee camps and inside the war-torn country.
Peter Kassig is dead. The American battle plan against ISIS has indeed marked some limited success. But the weekend revelation of another beheaded American has brought back to the fore this country's need to hammer down on this band of terrorists as swiftly and decisively as possible. And in order to make that happen, Americans must start thinking, the cliche works here, really outside the box. Let's welcome to MidPoint former U.S. Navy SEAL who has seen battle in Iraq and Afghanistan, also author of The ISIS Solution, How Unconventional Thinking in Special Operations Can Eliminate Radical Islam, Brandon Webb. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us, and as always, thank you for your service.
Thanks for having me.
Let's point out, first of all, before we get to the exact strategy here, I want to talk about Peter Kassig here and some of the thinking here. There is now an idea that this beheading and this video was an act of desperation by ISIS. They find themselves on the run, things are working, and that's why they put it out in this fashion. What's your take?
No, I think there's some truth to that, but I do think that regardless of whether we stamp out ISIS in any short period of time, we're still dealing with this radical ideology that I think that U.S. foreign policy has failed to address. And we've seen now, we've been at war with these terrorists for almost 13 years now, and what have we really accomplished? Is the world a safer place today than it was after the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks? And I think the answer is no. So what can we do? And we try and address those solutions in the ISIS solution.
Then what is at the top of your list when it comes down to the words unconventional thinking?
Well, we need to one, develop a very clear strategic objective that everyone can understand and get behind. Whether you're running a business or a country, the citizens and the rest of the world, this coalition we built, need to understand what America's objective is towards radical Islamic ideology worldwide. And we just have had a very murky foreign policy strategy. And one thing is clear to me and the guys that wrote the book with me is that, you know, we talk about the definition of insanity, and it's doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. And I think that's what we're seeing now in the world. And so for one, we need a very clear strategy with what we're doing in the world. We need to build a coalition between Western and Muslim countries. And we need to think about some ways that the U.S. government and other coalition governments can really affect this ideology that's become very vogue today. I mean, ISIS is recruiting from Europe, from America. What makes this so popular? So, you know, unconventional ideas start with perhaps hiring, you know, the top 3 advertising agencies globally and running commercials across, you know, Super Bowl ads, you name it, print, TV, digital, and really getting the word out to really show what a nasty group ISIS is, and really that this ideology that they're preaching is just not the way that things should be in the world.
Brandon, with all due respect, what you're saying are things that we have heard for months on this show and many others. Find the right allies, create the right plan, let the American people know. I have to be very frank with you. A lot of Americans are sick and tired of hearing basically the same thing over and over again and nothing being done and no one coming up with any real ideas. So let's, in the couple of minutes we have, let's try and break through that then. How do we break through that, stop saying the same thing over and over again, and what has this government got to do to get to that point of unconventional thinking and make something solid happen?
Well, I think it really takes the American public, and the internet can be a powerful tool to really put pressure on the government, their elected officials, to really do something, not just complain and talk about things, but we need real leadership in Washington. And I am hopeful, especially during this last round of elections. We're seeing more and more veterans get into office in Washington. And I think, you know, these veterans who've been overseas and have compassion, understand, you know, that not everyone lives the way that we live. And I think that, you know, I'm hopeful that they're going to do a lot to drive change. But I think America really needs to wake up and stop watching American Idol and really focus on what's happening in the world and where this country is going, because our government has become this large bureaucratic system that it's more about the appearance of work than actually getting things done. And that's a big problem.
Is the bigger problem here, and you alluded to this just a little bit, is that the American public, for the most part, is simply lazy and apathetic when it comes down to taking care of business?
Well, I think, you know, I hate to paint the entire American public like that.
Well, let's just say a good portion of them then. Let's not paint them all in that. But is it fair to say that there's a good number of people who, simply put, are just lazy, apathetic, let it get done, I don't care, I've got my Real Housewives and my American Idol, I can watch it, go away, I don't care?
I think that's a big part of the problem. I mean, when you have more people that are voting on American Idol with their cell phones than participating in democracy and the elections in this country, that, to me, that's a clear sign that we have some issues. And we have America at certain times in history, when the public has come together and really put pressure on our elected officials, it's proven that it does drive change and really force Washington to pay attention and develop a solution to what we have, because it's a big problem. We could stamp out ISIS tomorrow, but it doesn't address the fundamental root cause behind this radical Islamic ideology that's created instability in North Africa and the Middle East and elsewhere.
About 30 seconds I have left. Is it about time for Americans to see real video, real pictures, and really experience the horrors of war? Maybe then they'd understand? Or would that scare them away?
I don't know. It's tough. I think America has become very conditioned to seeing that stuff on TV and video games. So I'm not sure that it would have the desired effect. But I do think that, you know, it's important for media outlets and people to really start, you know, creating this narrative that and help. Part of what me and the guys that come from the special operations community, why we wrote this book is because we heard all the complaining going on in Washington and the media, and in the special operations community, you don't complain without bringing viable solutions to the table.
And we'll have to call it right there. We're out of time. The ISIS solution, sure. How unconventional thinking in special operations can eliminate radical Islam. Brandon Webb, thanks so much for joining us. We will talk to you again, and MidPoint will continue.